Okay. Well, welcome. Hello, and welcome to tonight's conversation. I'm Jane Mather, and I'm a makeup artist and personal stylist. And during these sorts of events, I like to inspire, empower, and create a sense of community for my followers. And I'm absolutely delighted this evening to welcome Frances Tobin, founder of the Makers Atelier, to tonight's event. So tonight we're going to be delving into the world of embracing your style, how to create a feeling of being stylish, and also how to go about making your own clothes. So no pressure.
Yeah, none.
So without further ado, please welcome Frances. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I was absolutely delighted when you accepted the invitation to be my guest. And it would be lovely, obviously we've got a lot of people who are watching today who probably don't know you, maybe you've never even heard of your company, so it'd be lovely to kick off everything with just them learning a bit more about you, who you are, what the Maker Atelier is all about, maybe even how you founded it, how you came about setting it up.
Okay. All right. Well, I've been making clothes since I was a child. My mother made clothes for me and my sisters, and I was very particular. I didn't like shop bought clothes. From about the age of 5, I remember throwing tantrums, being horrendous, and very quickly she realized the thing to do was to get me to watch while she made, because I knew exactly what I wanted. And then she got me, you know, I was allowed on the sewing machine while by the time I was 8, I was sort of making things. And she just let me do what I like, which was really good. There were no rules. I just did what I wanted. I made my clothes. Sometimes by the time I was like 14, meeting my friends on a Saturday, I would suddenly, I'd know what I wanted to wear, and I'd sort of staple my hems up. I'd use sellotape, didn't care. Okay. Just got to get out there. This is what I'm wearing. Anyway, I was just obsessed with clothes. I went to art college, studied fashion. Well, I studied textiles, and then textiles and fashion. I couldn't separate the two. So after Brighton, I'd done textiles for fashion with business studies, I then went to the Royal College of Art, first of all to do fashion, but I found the fashion school, because you didn't develop the fabric seemed to be like secondary. I can't dissociate one from the other. Yeah. So I moved back to textile school. I was doing knitwear, so knitwear you can do both, and I was doing everything. And then I graduated with a collection, and I was very lucky to be offered, well, I was offered a couple of jobs, but I took one in Italy at Le Copain, which was pretty senior. I mean, I was like the senior designer for knitwear and accessories, which is, I mean, I had worked as a student, you know, for companies, but it was pretty frightening to suddenly find yourself in that position. They also, Le Copain did the knitwear, I don't know if they still do, but they did all the knitwear for Gianni Versace. So I sold swatches to them. And that was really interesting to see how, I mean, Le Copain's very designer too, but it wasn't, it's not known here, but it's big in Italy, and it was, you know, it had its market. But after a season, I was very homesick. London was very fashionable, so came back, but then I was approached by a company that's like an agency in Milan. Okay. And worked and freelance for them. So I used to do 2 weeks in Milan, 2 weeks in London while I was starting a studio with a load of friends in London. And so I worked on all sorts of ranges in Milan, from Gucci through to Umberto Giannichetti, and then Thierry Mugler's diffusion line. They'd send his sketches after the show in Paris, and then I'd have to do the diffusion line from these sketches that were like, not like British art students where we really are taught how to draw, how to communicate through our sketches. It was like, wow, what does this mean? But anyway, it was an experience. But at the same time, I'd started freelancing in the UK. with French Connection, who I did like season after season with, Esprit in America, and off and on Warehouse for Jeff Banks I did, and I worked for Jeff since on other projects. And yeah, so I freelanced. Then I went to work for Arcadia Group. It was called Burton at the time, and it had Debenhams as well, which is now, of course, in complete disarray, like most of the fashion industry. And I've worked for loads of people freelance. Yeah,
and then a particular element that you really liked when you were freelancing and working for those different companies?
What did I like? I like the travel.
Yeah.
I mean, I get to travel. I used to travel a lot,
nice.
To New York, Paris, I loved. The Far East was interesting from a manufacturing point of view. But it's tiring doing all that, you know. It's okay. I mean, yeah, it was okay, but I'm glad I'm not doing it now.
Yeah.
Although everybody wants to travel, I'm just probably the only person that was fine. I'm here.
I think the novelty wears off, doesn't it, after a while? The traveling, staying in hotels, all that sort
and
of
also
thing.
When you're a freelance designer, you're always you're designing for that brand, and you keep having to change your style. You can lose your style. Because your job is, and as a designer, your job is to be a sponge of ideas.
Yeah.
You just soak everything up, and then what's happening, gauging trends. I did quite a lot of trend forecasting, and also I was responsible for the color most of the places where I worked. If you've done knitwear, you do a lot of dyeing at college, and also knitwear tends to be, because the yarn is earliest in the whole cycle of production. And Arcadia, when I was taken on there, first of all, it was to be color and fabric direction for the group. So for all the brands, how does that filter down and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And so that really interests me. But so that was the bit I loved. There was an awful lot I didn't like. It's a very hard business. Loads of people want to be in it. You can be underpaid for your effort. The whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, it can, I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen the program about Philip Green. Well, it's not about him, but it's it's Steve Coogan playing him.
Yes, yeah.
Well, yes, exactly. There are people like that. So I'll probably get done for that now. Anyway, but what I've always done is kept making my clothes, you know, whoever I worked for, it didn't matter. And I went into my local fabric shop one day, which is Ditto here in Brighton. I haven't always lived in Brighton. I came back to Brighton in 2000. And Jill, who runs Ditto, is quite determined. And she just sort of said to me, just make your own, do your own patterns, publish your own patterns. And I was going, why would I do that? You know, I just make my own clothes. People kept wanting my clothes, but I didn't want to have a range. I'd had a knitwear range in my own name at one stage in the 90s. And yeah, in the 80s, 90s, can't remember, late 80s.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to, I mean, I broke even, but that was all. Okay. And it's such hard work, and I didn't want to get into that sort of thing. And then she said about these patterns, and I thought, but I don't like dressmaking patterns. So I think she's mad. And I said, oh, I'll think about it. And I was quite bored that weekend, but no, that day, it was like a Thursday, Friday night. But that weekend I was going over to see some friends the other side of Sussex, and Jill had said to me about Merchant and Mills, and I thought, oh, I'll go and have a look. And I went over there, and this is in 2013 or something. And I met Carolyn at Merchant and Mills, and she really impressed me. People think we got a style. She's got a very different style to me. I think we have different styles, but we both came from the fashion industry, you know, and design is really important. And she just said, do it. And I thought, well, actually, I could just do it. I just sold my flat that I had been in. Probably that was a really risky thing to have done, because I thought, well, I'll just do it as a vanity project. I'll just set up a brand. I'd worked on brands, you know, setting up brands in the fashion industry. And I thought I'd like to do something that's to do with dressmaking that relates to me. There must be somebody else who wanted something that's sort of feminine, but wearable. And I just didn't buy any of the patterns that were out there, you know. Well, I didn't need them because I wanted my own designs anyway. But I just thought whenever I had done, like in my youth, I had bought a Vogue pattern, whatever. It was very complicated. It's not the sort of clothes I wear. There's a lot of darts. I mean, don't get me wrong, because that's some people's style. And I'm not criticizing that, but it wasn't my style.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll just do it as my style and I'm just going to see what happens. I'm not going to do market research. That's what I did in the fashion industry. And half the time it never works because people don't know what they want till they see it. And I thought, I know exactly what I want of this. And so I took a punt and I worked with Joe at 8th Day and the 8th Day team, who I'd worked with before they'd done my personal website. And I said, I've got this idea. And I was quite specific on some things, that I was doing mood boards, and I gave Joe a mood board. And I said, this is the Maker's Atelier. I had the name. I'd already bought all the, you know, websites, etc., domains, sorry. And Joe just, we went with it. And it was very fast once I briefed Joe and her team in the, I think it was January. Yeah, it was January. It was directly after Christmas, because I set the company up with the week of Christmas with Company's House. And we basically just worked flat out and launched in the August of 2014. Yes, it was pretty flat out. And at the same time, I bought the flat I'm in, and there's a studio the other end, and that had to be completely gutted and done.
So to start off with, were you working from home?
Yeah, before I moved to here, I had a studio in an architect's office. Okay. So I was working there, which was a bit mad, because when I was working there initially, it was like doing design work and color work, and I'd been working with architects on color as well. So it had gone, my work was much more sort of cerebral then. And suddenly I said to him, Neil, do you mind if I bring a sewing machine in here? I'll just use it at night. And he was like, yeah, whatever. So I was like, well, I've got to get these samples out now, because once we got the website, it was like, right, I know what the range is. I've got to do all the photo shoots. And it was just like mad.
Yes, yeah.
And then we launched and just see what happens. And it's quite slow to initially, although the first order that wasn't from a friend or my family happened in 2 weeks. And then the first order from America happened within a month. Brilliant. Which was, I mean, Carolyn from Merchant and Mills had said, you know, the Americans will be on to you. And they have been, and it's great. I mean, that was really encouraging. I mean, some people just don't get my style. And it's not for everybody, you know.
So how would you describe your style?
Right, well, I design things that are current. Obviously, I'm aware of fashion. I follow all the shows. I know all of that. But it has to be wearable. It has to be pared back. I want clothes that I can wear and people can wear, but they don't wear them, if that makes sense.
So they're feeling comfortable in those clothes.
You've absolutely got to feel comfortable in your clothes. I mean, that's why I don't like anything particularly fitted. I really want to be relaxed about the things I do wear that are fitted are usually in stretch fabric. So stretch pencil skirt that I did, which I wear all the time. I'm wearing stretch pencil skirt or my pull-on wide leg trouser.
Yeah.
I just got to be able to move. That's me.
Yeah.
I'm not so much a dress person, but somebody had told me that dresses are really important in home dressmaking. So a lot of the time I'll have a dress, I'm sorry, behind you, the other side of my computer is the whole range, because I need to be able to reference it all the time. So often I'll do something that's a top and a dress. So for me, I would generally wear it more as a top, but I know it works really well as a dress. I do wear dresses in the summer. So that's when it changes, you know, like when I can actually wear bare legs, because otherwise in the winter, I wear it with boots.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal style, everybody has their style. Mine is, I usually wear like one chroma of color. Does that make sense? So a family of color. Like I love tones of color.
Tones of that color. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's big. I mean, I love navy blue. And the funny thing is, when we were starting the brand, I did the first set of samples in navy blue. We did the photo shoot, and I realized nobody can see the detail. You can't, you know, we couldn't see the detail when we tried it out on a pattern envelope or online. So then everything had to be made overnight for the next shoot day in cream and grey. Everything I could find in my stash, I thought this could work, basically. Anybody that sews has a stash.
Yeah.
It's called your stash, your fabrics.
Yeah.
And it never seems to diminish. Doesn't matter how many clothes I make, but anyway. But a lot of the time I do wear navy. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know
why.
It's
almost quite like a natural style preference, isn't it? I mean, it's, you know, it's an easy to wear, the material and everything, it's very
yes,
it works with your body shape. You know, it's easy for you to have on. There's nothing that's really restrictive, or, you know, you're not going to be constantly adjusting things or you know.
Well, I'm always adjusting things. Sorry.
I mean, for me, I absolutely hate wearing like a stiff white crisp shirt.
Okay, yeah.
Because I really find that uncomfortable. Whereas, you know, give me a dress, you know, a knitted dress or something like that, that's really easy to slip on. You know, you can put it with boots, put it with tights, like say wear it in the summer. You know, that's definitely what I prefer to wear, and nothing too bright either. So yeah, the colours are very much, you know, the navies, browns, those sorts of colours.
Yeah, I don't have many things that are bright.
No.
Some orange.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah, it's more of a monochrome, isn't it? Sort of.
Yes. Actually, I realised when I did a picture, when I was leaving my last flat, I was in a rental, and I suddenly found myself with just my clothes. And the other stuff was in store at the architect's office. So I just had my rail of clothes, and I realized that I'd done them tonally, and it just went black, navy, this color to white, and that's it.
Yeah.
And this to white is summer, and black to navy is winter. I wear black a lot less now, because I did realize, I suppose with people like being photographed or Instagram, or I don't really like taking my own photograph, but then I'm on Zoom or whatever, I realize that black doesn't really suit me.
Yeah.
Probably when I was younger it was okay.
Yeah.
So it can be, certain colors can completely drain you. I mean, bright colors drain me. And also they don't suit my coloring at all.
Have you had your colors done? Have you?
No, I know that's the sort of thing you do. I don't really go with it, because I think you should feel free to experiment with colours. But the difficulty, I think, for a lot of people is having the time to really consider their clothes. I mean, it was a really good exercise for me to actually be, when I left my flat, my last flat to this one, because I had never really sorted my clothes out. And then suddenly I'm in this titchy place where I was renting till I got this place. And I had to really consider my clothes. And it was interesting because I tried on everything and I thought that works. I did that thing that they tell you to do when you feng shui your cupboards or whatever you're supposed to be doing. And I realized that I buy the same thing. If I buy it, it's a jumper. And I buy the same crew neck. I'm just so, it's obvious what and my own clothes that I make is the stretch pencil skirt. This top I really like under jackets, which is my drawstring top. This is the jacket.
But you really know your style, don't you? I think you know what suits you, what you feel comfortable in, what colours work for you.
But I think you can do that. If you go through what's in your cupboard and you just pick out your favourite pieces,
Yes.
That is what you should build upon, because what you feel comfortable in, you'll look good in. Yeah. I'm a big believer of that. Yeah. But at the same time, I think, I mean, if I do shop or I go and look at the shops, I look at all of the sort of designer shops and stuff, but I really love COS. I think their fabrics are fantastic. And I also go to Arket, which is a brand they have in London. I don't know if they're where else they are, but it's a sort of quality but affordable.
Yeah.
Owned by H&M.
Yeah.
And also they have, they have some scruples. It's quite important to me where clothes come from, not colours, sorry. Having worked in the fashion industry, I know how it works in the Far East. I know how you think you're placing an order with a company, but they'll subcontract. And it's bad. People aren't paid properly, which is why we have such cheap clothes on the high street. And I can go on and on about that. But I mean, so I think if you make your own clothes, you have an understanding of how difficult it is to make clothes.
Yeah, and the time.
Yeah, hang on, sorry.
Yeah.
Losing my voice. And I think everybody should be made to make clothes, actually, when they're young. I have to say, at the school I was at, they were very strict, and it was enough to put you off anything. And they thought I couldn't sew. And luckily my mum she couldn't keep me off the machine, but it was good she never criticized that part of what I did. Because otherwise, where would I be,
Well, yeah. And a lot of it is about experimenting, isn't it? And trying and seeing what you can and can't do and making those mistakes.
And I still experiment all the time now. I mean, that's part of the design process, is how when something goes wrong or something that it's always going to work one way, other stuff comes out of it.
Yeah.
So you have to fail before you're going to succeed.
Yeah.
I think.
So how would you suggest then, if someone wanted to get into making their own clothes? I mean, for example, I've never made my own clothes. I would have absolutely no idea where to start. And the whole thing, I think I would find quite daunting. I'd feel a little bit intimidated by it, I think. So how would you go about, how would somebody like myself go about?
Well, it's very difficult with most people are in lockdown and can't, it's quite difficult for us all to sort of socialize, obviously, but it's actually to go and learn with somebody.
Okay.
I can't teach because I'm a designer and I do what I like, but I do have people that keep me under control. And actually I do like the sewing retreat with Claire Tyler, who she also writes for my magazine. She does like a technical column, and Claire is a brilliant teacher, absolutely brilliant. And she can take somebody. I learn from her all the time, Well, people learn, you learn from other people. When we do the sewing retreat, people come to the retreat and they'll do something one way. That's the brilliant thing about sewing, is everybody has their way of doing it. And the more you do it, the more you try something else, I mean, and then like I've done things like I went to learn to make shoes, and that taught me a lot more about working with leather and suede and things like that.
Yeah.
So you learn every time you communicate with somebody in the making process. But to initially start, if your mother hasn't taught you, it would be to go to a class.
Yeah.
I think it's quite difficult. How would you even learn to thread a machine? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing it maybe once or twice with my gran, but not to an extent where I would feel happy now. I mean, I bought the material to make cushions, just a basic cushion cover.
Yes.
And that material has just sat in the cupboard because I just haven't got the confidence to
So have you got a machine?
Sorry?
Have you got a machine?
I borrowed my mum's machine, but it has now gone back to But yeah, so it's baby steps, presumably. I mean, presumably something like a cushion is a cushion cover would be.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, corners are tricky.
Okay.
Well, they're not if you don't. I mean, like Claire's just told me a technique to get perfect collars, which is something for the next magazine, and
yeah,
you know, but it's trial and error. But I've never made a cushion. I mean, I have now, but I mean, I didn't. I just started making clothes. You have to make something you're interested in, but you can make a bag. I mean,
yes, yeah.
So, like, I make a lot of bags. You told me to get some things ready, so I had this is the bag that's in my book. I have a book, and there's a bag, and you can't see it, but it's. I knew this would happen. Everything I have that's dark. Anyway, it's a little leather bag. It's very simple. It's a simple.
Oh, you can see the material. It does, you know, yeah, there when you're holding it in that position. So
it's lined inside.
Okay.
I don't think you can see the lining's got a little ditzy print on. But I mean, that's simpler than a cushion because you don't have to close the top.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, because with a cushion, you're going to have to put a zip in, or you're going to have to do like an envelope.
Yeah.
Which is tricky.
Yes.
But I mean, that's so I'm not being very helpful or very encouraging about how to start, but I would say it's really worth doing.
Claire who did the.
Yes, Claire Tyler.
Okay. So is her stuff online? Does she do?
Yes, I think it's Claire Tyler Couture.
Couture. Okay.
If you Google Claire Tyler Couture, you'll find her.
Yeah. Okay.
And yes, and I know she does one-to-one sessions. So if you can do sew-alongs with her, or you can do all sorts. It's worth just having a look at what she does. And she also does sewing retreats. For my sewing retreat that I do with her, it's better if, I mean, we like people to have, at least know how to use their machine, because they can bring their own machine, or we can supply machines. But it's not about, it's only 3 days, and we like somebody to leave with something made. And they learn about fabrics and things and how to use it, because also different fabrics, they respond differently. You need different needles and a different stitch. There's all sorts of techniques, which it's too much to go into here, but you basically have, I see it that there's 3 types of fabric: woven, which is just like a shirting fabric, through to coating, stretch, which can be jersey, but you can also have stretch wovens, but stretch works in a different way. And then you have things like leathers and technical fabrics.
Okay.
And you have to deal with all of those differently. And when I was, until I started to make Atelier and actually had to communicate to other people, I hadn't really thought how much I had just gained over years and years and years of sewing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I've worked in factories and in Italy, I worked with some of the best technicians who taught me so much, and watching them. And also, you as a designer, you have to communicate design, and they make it, and then you'll say, I mean, I'm very much hands-on. I don't just give a drawing out and hope it's going to come back. You know, whenever I've worked with factories, I've worked with them.
Yeah. So for the patterns that you're creating, where would you get your inspiration, and where would that come from?
It comes from all sorts. I watch tons of films. Yeah. I obviously follow all the fashion shows. I find fabric everywhere. You know, I don't just shop in fabric shops. I shop in markets, anywhere.
Right.
So I can be inspired by fabric, like the unlined draw edge coat that I have as a pattern. Was because I was inspired by neoprene from wetsuits, from windsurfers.
Yeah.
And then Cloth House had got some neoprene. This is in the 90s. The first neoprene I'd seen that was actually for dressmaking came from Japan. And that inspired me to do things more. I love raw edges. This is raw edge, this is suede.
Yeah.
And I just pink the edges.
Yeah, that's lovely.
I like and sometimes I'll even do raw edges that fray. I quite like that it's quite tactile and different than very finished garments. Sometimes I'll do a very finished garment, like I have a blazer pattern that you can fully line, which I do, and it's very different from my more unstructured things.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know where I've gone off on one of my tangents. I don't know what the question was, and I probably didn't answer it. Sorry.
That's all right. We were talking about inspiration, and obviously in your, I don't think it was this week's newsletter, but the one before that, you were talking about the film, the series, the Serpent.
Oh yeah, that's really.
I mean, I hadn't watched it, but I looked it up. I googled it. I mean, there's amazing outfits, isn't there? In that,
the clothes are fantastic, and I was really I thought it was very interesting where I can't remember the costume designer's name, but her inspiration was it Jane Birkin? But anyway, it was very interesting because I was a teenager in the 70s, and I didn't look like that. I mean, I did have some good clothes. Luckily, the older sisters and Bieber, I had some great clothes actually. Yes, it's interesting that the 70s are coming back now. 80s are inspiring. They're inspiring people. And it's funny, if you've gone through that once already, it's never exactly the same. The translation for now is different fabrics. So it is quite different. Yeah. But I get my inspiration from everywhere.
But it is amazing how many people still have those clothes in the back of their wardrobe that they're now, pulling out and reusing. And
I know, I would not use something that I had then identically because I would be inspired by it. But I mean, I tend to, I wouldn't wear something that's so obviously of a period like that. My stuff is much more of now.
Yeah, more modern. Yeah,
and I'm interested in the future, so I'll take. Also, it can be a gut instinct. Like I designed something in the first lockdown. Well, I designed a lounge pant and a lounge shirt, and I call them that because they're for lounging around. They're big, they're voluminous. The trouser is cropped because but it's got the crotch is lower, so it's really easy for sitting around. We're just sitting around waiting for lockdown to finish. It seemed to be putting on weight, and I didn't want to look like that, so I needed to hide it all. So that was how that came about. So it'll be about it. And when we're not in lockdown, it'll be like I see people, I see what they're wearing, I see how that's changing. So I'll take stuff from the street, from catwalk, from films, from wherever. I mean, I think like Bridgerton, the Regency's inspired. Yeah. I mean, fantasy, it's fantastic. The costumes in that are just absolutely extraordinary. Of course, they're not right. They're not historically correct totally. But the fabric, because there's the costume designer there used the 50s for the coloration and some of the fabrics.
Yeah.
And I found that fascinating, that mix. And also it was really interesting to see that cut where you've got, that the raised waist.
Yeah.
And I think that will influence people.
Yeah. Well, we spoke previously, didn't we, about the Queen's Gambit. I don't think you'd watched that on Netflix.
Oh yes, no, I had.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I watch it when I see something. I just binge. I binge the whole lot.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely loved that film, and it wasn't until somebody pointed out to me about the designs of her dresses and how they were all made to look like a chessboard.
Yes. Reminiscent of chess.
The thought that goes into a lot of these programs you don't really realize if you're not in that space.
Yes, because costume designers work, they're sending messages through the clothes. So in Bridgerton, the family that's quite loud, brash, new money are the ones wearing the loud, you know, the 50s inspired colorations compared to the establishment. And that's very interesting. I think also we should never underestimate what our clothes, the messages they send.
Yes.
You know,
yeah, that's something I talk to my clients a lot, especially if they're working in that corporate world, you know, the first impressions and the image.
People have decided in something like 20 seconds.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you can't help it. It's sort of in you.
Yeah.
But
you do it subconsciously.
You know, sometimes people say, oh, well, clothes don't matter. Unfortunately, they do. And if you're going to put something on, you might as well put something on that you believe in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's better to have one thing. I mean, this jacket is like 20 years old that I made like donkeys years ago. But it's always like, I didn't know what to wear this evening, but this feels comfortable. And also the color, because you couldn't be able to see it if I was wearing navy blue. You just think, what's she wearing?
Yeah.
I know.
So if you were looking to the future, you know, 5 years out, something like that, where do you think you'll be, your company will be, you know, style will be?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, quite honestly, if you'd asked me in the first lockdown, I'd have thought, well, I'll be bloody lucky if I get out of here.
Yeah.
And it's very scary at the moment. It's particularly, you know, it's scary for anybody.
Yeah.
Any business, you know, besides Amazon, I can't imagine anybody's doing.
Yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah. You've got to be in IT or Amazon, I think. But I don't know where my business will be. You know, it was very fast when it grew, like, because I was asked to I was approached about a book within the first year. And then the book came out in 2017, because it takes about a year between agreeing the contract and it comes out. And that was working flat out. And then within a year, I'd started the magazine, and that was in 2018, which started just twice a year, and now it's 4 times a year. It won't go more than that.
Yeah.
Unless I have a massive team. I mean, I'm the only full-time employee of the company, but I have freelancers and photographers, writers, you know, that work with me.
Presumably more people, you know, whilst we're in lockdown, more people have been buying patterns and, you know, being a bit more creative. It feels that people are getting back into those sorts of crafts more.
Yeah, I think so.
Quilting, that, you know, that sort of.
Yeah. I don't know how long they'll stick at it. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I hope it has made people realize how there's something you achieve so much if you use your hands.
Yeah.
You go into a different space, you can lose yourself. It's really relaxing, but it's also, it's so rewarding. I mean, of course, there's times you're making something and it goes wrong from beginning to end. You know, it's a bit like cooking. Sometimes you just don't have it. They call it your mojo, but your sojo or something.
And that happened to me with gardening. So I planted loads of stuff, and then some of it worked, some of it didn't work, and then I've got to wait another year before I can, you know, do it all again. But it's trial and error, isn't it, a lot of the time?
Yeah, but when you make something and you wear it and you feel good in it, there's nothing like it, you know. Nobody else has what you have, and that's important. I mean, I don't know if that came from me being in the fashion industry, where especially when you work in Italy, they just read your clothes and they price up your wardrobe, like she's wearing that.
Wow.
You know, they do it with a flash of an eye. You can see somebody's just done it, and it just used to really annoy me. And I wouldn't wear the ranges that I worked on. I only wore my clothes so they couldn't do it. And it would really annoy them. And that, you know.
Probably made me feel really uncomfortable, just, you know, not being able to do that assessment. And
maybe. I know it got one woman really mad. That's her problem. I just
So with your patterns, is there a particular pattern that seems to be more popular than others?
The unlined raw edge coat is really popular because that was one of my first patterns and is really popular. The other one is a big easy top, which is very simple to make. The lounge pant is very, very popular. Of my most recent ones, the lounge pant, lounge shirt, yeah. The wide leg trouser is very popular. When I first designed that pattern, that was back in 2015, and it didn't sell for a while. And I was like, well, I mean, sometimes I'll do stuff because I know it's coming on trend. And I have to sit with it, like the tiered blouse. I remember when that first came out, which I'm trying to see where it is because it'll have a date on it. But that didn't go down very well. Yeah, 2018, 2019 initially. And then in the summer months, that really sells well.
Right. Because
often, well, I'm quite used to designing, a year in advance. Maybe the high street, or it's not out there so much yet. And also, if you're making clothes, you want to be sure that what you're making you want to wear. Yeah. So I understand people's reservation. I mean, the bomber jacket that I did, which was in the first set of patterns back in 2014, that didn't sell initially. Then it sold really well. Right. And then it went off, but then that's been selling again now because of everybody wearing leisure wear. It really works well with the leisure wear. So, yes. Yeah. And I haven't really pushed that. It's just happened. So it's quite interesting sometimes when I've realized, people are getting back into that again. Yeah. I mean, I knew leisure wear was it was interesting because in fashion terms, leisure wear, we'd had this whole athleisure thing happening. And then that was coming off and the fashion industry was moving towards a tailoring with the blazer, and that sort of look was happening just before the pandemic started. And then of course we go into the pandemic and well, nobody wants tailoring. Of course they don't want tailoring. No. It's not, why would you need it around the house? So then we've gone leisure wear again. I think as we come out of the pandemic, people will want to dress up naturally. Yeah. That's going to happen but I think it'll be interesting because we've got so used to now a different way of dressing that the very strict, a tailored suit, I don't know. Yeah. I really don't know. And also, it'll probably continue, won't it, with more people working from home, not traveling as much. That'll go on for a long time. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I do think we'll see wanting to wear celebratory sort of clothes, and maybe towards the autumn or definitely into next summer. Yeah. Things are a little bit special. Yeah. Yeah. I would think so. Yeah. I don't know. People are talking about how it was after the First World War in the 20s and 30s, where in the 20s you had this whole, very the changing role of women, their dress, everybody, quite glamorous. It was also a period of a completely different silhouette in that they, instead of wearing corsets, they were wearing slip dresses. There was a change of sexual antics, I hear. I don't know, I wasn't around. I think once the pandemic's over, I'm sure if I was young, I'd go mental, but hey, yes. I'm not. It'll be interesting to see, won't it? What does happen? Yeah. Yeah. So if people wanted to follow you, and obviously you do your newsletter, don't you? That's a good way of people keeping in contact with you and what you do. Yeah. So that comes out weekly, wasn't it? Yes, it comes out weekly, and it's sort of like the shop window. So if there's anything new or what's interesting me or what's inspiring me, or if I've made something, I make variations with patterns. So, yeah, so that's a good way of keeping up to date with what's going on. Yeah. And then obviously you're on social media as well. So you've got your Instagram account
and was it
Yeah.
Facebook as well?
Do have Facebook, but generally that's just what's happening in the newsletter or Instagram.
Okay.
I mean, Instagram's where I post, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, the newsletter is my main form of communication.
Yes. Yeah. And it's a lovely style as well, because it gives you the headline and then directs you to your website, doesn't it, or other websites for more information. So
yes,
it works well. Well, shall we see if we've got any questions? We've got a few minutes. The aim is to try and finish by 7:30. So if we see if we've got any questions come through. Let's have a look. So we've got one lady who's asking, I would love to make more clothes, but my hurdle is choosing fabric. There are a few fabric shops and it feels like a big plunge to buy online. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, if I'm going to buy anything online, I get swatches. Most fabric companies, they'll do swatches and you pay either £1 for the swatch, 50p for the swatch, or you pay for the postage. But I would never just buy a length of fabric, because it doesn't matter how good the photography is, you can't handle it. You've got to be able to touch the fabric.
Yeah.
So I would always get swatches, because then you can feel it. And if you're not sure, look in your wardrobe at what's the similar weight and look at that garment, because that'll be, so say you get a swatch. I don't know, I've got some here. So these are from Bloomsbury Square, and these were Fabworks, I think, but anyway.
Is there a particular website you would go to that you would recommend, or a particular place that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ditto Fabrics, Bloomsbury Square, Rosenberg's, which is actually Stitch Fabrics, I think, is their website. Fabworks, Cloth House, one of my favorite shops. So who else? That's sort of where I'd go. Yeah. Okay. And I'd get swatches, and then so you get the swatch and feel that and see what's in your wardrobe that's a similar weight, or if what you like is lighter, would that still do the job, you know? I mean, it's very difficult to tell, because like this check, I thought you can't see it's a check, but it's a check, and it's got I thought it was going to be slightly heavier, so I'm really glad I got the swatch. Okay, so I paid for the swatch, doesn't matter. Yeah, that was whatever it was, 50p or £1, whereas you're talking about £18 a meter, so that's £36 or whatever for what I if I'm not sure, but I love a fabric. Yeah, I do tend to buy 3 meters because that'll cover anything. Okay.
So do you have a favorite natural fabric that's, you know, that you like?
Oh, probably viscose elastane, which it can be in any weight, like a t-shirt weight, or this is heavier. This is one of my skirts.
Okay. So it's got a little bit of stretch to it.
Oh yeah. I like fabrics with some stretch.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, I mean, I really love making with suede and leather. Other fabrics that are great. Wool. I don't have. I mean, I do love things with some drape. So if it's got some viscose in, that automatically gives it some weight. Almost, you know, viscose is a heavy fiber. Yeah, and that looks better when you wear it.
Yeah. So someone's asking about the display that's behind you, and if you could just chat us through what's
okay behind me.
We're intrigued by what we can see.
Well, those other fabric swatches I've just been doing for the current magazine is about natural dyes, and I decided to see what would happen with ingredients from my kitchen.
Okay.
And This one is, the yellow is turmeric.
It's a beautiful colour.
This was beetroot, which I thought would be really strong. I'll bring them over, then you can see more.
Yeah.
So this was an experiment with beetroot. So I have different fabrics here. This is sweatshirting.
Okay.
Brushback sweatshirting. This is wool, woven wool and silk. And then I had some jersey, the jersey, this is the viscose. And this was tea. No. Yeah, this is the tea. Sorry, not the beetroot. I'll show you the beetroot in a minute. So this, I got a whole load of like builder's tea bags, you know, Thai food, tea or PG tips. And I just stewed it up and put these in. And these were the colors that came out. I mean, I prepped my fabric. Sorry, I should say you have to prep your fabric first with stuff. Anyway, it's all in the magazine. I can't remember. I can't retain all this information. But you have to prepare your fabric. So you wash out all the stuff that's in there, finishing agents.
Okay.
And then you need something that attracts the dye.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different for wool. It'll be acids and salt for cottons, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, this was my experiment with beetroot, which, of course, if you ever use beetroot, it dyes your hands and everything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stay. It's I can't remember the technical term. There's a word for it, but it doesn't stay. It washes out.
So it hasn't absorbed at all then?
No, it looked lovely in the dye bath, and then as soon as you put it underwater, that's that done. And then this was the turmeric, which is beautiful, and especially on the silk, which you can't see here, but it's more banana. We're not in daylight, but it's more banana. It's beautiful. And then here with this one, I did turmeric and tea, and this is more like mustard colors that I really like.
Yeah, I love the browns.
Yeah, so otherwise it's just anything that catches my eye at the moment.
Inspiration board.
Yeah, just something I like, pictures or the fabric on the pictures. It's just anything I want to remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Then I have, and what you can't see is all the Makes Atelier patterns. That's the whole range is on the other wall. So, you know, if somebody questions me about something, I've got the information. They wanted to know that. Yeah. Now I know. Because I can't, there's too much in the range now to remember everything.
Yeah.
But also doing the magazine. Or maybe it's my COVID brain. You can't retain everything.
So we've got another question that's come through. How do you think your style has changed over time? Are there still elements of things you enjoyed wearing when you were younger that are still referenced in your style today?
Absolutely. And it's extraordinary because I remember when I was at the Royal College wearing pencil skirt, flat pumps, and a man's Mac. Everybody wore oversized men's Macs, like you buy from secondhand store.
Yeah.
And I pretty much wear an oversized version. The unlined raw edge coat is roomy, but I wear an oversized version of that. Often it'll be with stretch pencil skirt. So how has my style changed? I don't think it's changed much at all. I suppose it's become more defined, but it was I don't know when I don't think I've changed much. I really don't.
Sounds like some of the people that subscribe to your newsletter and that, it sounds like they want to see you in front of the camera.
Me?
Yeah.
Like this? That's me.
For like a proper photo shoot.
Why?
From the questions that are coming through.
Oh.
You're obviously inspiring them to for the range of clothes and the way that you dress. So somebody else has said, we're really enjoying your patterns. The box blouse is a favourite. How do you feel about current Vogue patterns? They have changed over the years and I find them a little disappointing.
Well, this sounds very arrogant. I don't look at other patterns because I don't actually want to be influenced by that. I found when I was, I do remember the last Vogue pattern I bought was, I wanted to do a coat. This was it was when I was a student. So we're talking about the end of probably the early 80s. And what really annoyed me actually is that the tissue is so fine, it rips. And now when you buy patterns, those patterns that aren't, I mean, I don't know what all the because like there's 400 or so independent brands now, but the big boys, those patterns come in a paper envelope that they've glued down. So as soon as you open it, it's ruined. You know, the whole thing's ruined.
Yeah.
And okay, you're conveying some information so people can go and make something, but that was really important to me. My patterns have this tie, washer and tie closure. It's a card envelope. The paper, you can get pins through, but you can use it time and again. You get a back neck label. That was the one thing I loved as a child. My mum would get the Vogue designer patterns for my sisters, and I would get the designer's label, whoever designed their pattern, you know.
Yeah.
And so you get a Maker's Atelier pattern in one of my patterns. But what do I think of current patterns? I can't tell you because I don't know. I only know I don't want to be too influenced by what's happening, because for me, this is about a clothing range you can make yourself. It's not about the craft industry. And I know some people don't like my patterns because it's not about brilliant sewing. You know, some people sew because they want to, all of us want to improve the way we sew, but for some people it's the technique of sewing, and I completely get that. But I'm about, it's what I want to wear.
Yeah, okay.
And I think those are different mindsets.
Yeah. So another question's come through. Do you have any advice on sewing stretch fabrics? Do you use an overlocker? Hopefully that means something to you.
Yeah, right. With stretch fabrics, I only use an overlocker if the fabric is very fine. And I'll tell you, I don't use an overlocker to sew something together. I know you can do that, but for me, I want to be able to alter my clothes all the time. You know, if I put on weight or whatever, I want to be able to undo that seam and change the garment. And I do that quite often. So if you overlock, you can't unpick overlocking.
Right.
So I use an overlocker to finish my edges. I'm looking around for something to show you. I don't even know if you'll see this. No, you can't see it. But I overlock all the pieces individually so that they don't fray, and then I put my garment together. Okay. So my technique for jersey sewing, and I know it's different from Claire's, because Claire has a different technique, but mine has always been on the downward, going down your body. I just put pressure on, I pull the jersey slightly. You must use a ballpoint needle because jersey fabrics, it's a bit like tights, stockings. If you break the thread, it can ladder. If you buy a cheap t-shirt, if you've ever noticed, it ladders. And that is because as soon as you break a thread, unlike woven fabrics, the whole thing unravels because it's a set of stocking stitch, basically. And that's the same with all jersey fabrics. Of course, sweatshirting fabric, that won't do it to the same extent. But a ballpoint needle means you won't ruin the fabric. And then I just put I put some tension on the fabric as I feed it through. And if it's then goes like that, I just steam and it'll go, that all goes away. But that means you've got enough give that when you put the jersey on, the seam doesn't break. because the jersey gives, you've got to have a bit of give in your thread. Now, when you're going across the body, I use a zigzag or twin needle, and I'm trying to look here. Yeah, you won't be able to, it bleaches it out, but twin needle is when you have two needles in your machine and they're threaded separately, but the bobbin is just one thread. So what happens is that bobbin thread goes between the two stitches that are happening above.
Okay.
If that makes sense. It's a zigzag. The bobbin does a zigzag. So that gives you the stretch. And it also gives you a really professional finish around your necklines, waistlines and hems.
Nice.
So that's my 2 tips.
Yeah.
For jersey. And if your jersey does do all of that and it won't steam out, wash it and you'll be surprised. Jersey is quite forgiving, you know. That's one thing with making clothes. You should always wash the fabric before you start as well, when you buy it from a shop, because it'll have finishing. And also they do something called stentering, so it looks nice on the roll. They'll pull it out. So you need to get rid of all that. That's the shrinkage that can happen and everything. You need to relax the fabric.
Yeah. Lovely. So I think that's all of the questions.
Okay.
Had some lovely feedbacks. Someone saying it's been really great to hear your story, your whole story. So that's really lovely.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody that came along.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for everybody who's been watching this evening. We had, you know, an amazing response to people signing up to this webinar. So, you know, it's been really special, and thank you so much for joining me today, this evening, and agreeing to be a guest today. It's, yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And like, you know, the lady said, it's been really interesting hearing your story and how, you know, things have developed for you and your company and how that's, you know, flourishing as well. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for watching.
Yeah.
See you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye.